Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X books is their mission, so get ready for the Learned Edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow, except your mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow, except your mind.
Welcome, all you weirdos, additional members of Generation X, and distant cousins of Kamala Khan. It is time to receive your 147th Weird Dose of X, the mutant member of your Weird Science podcast family. I am your housekeeping-challenged host, Jason, broadcasting as always from the Wrong Turn studio perched high atop stately Weird Science Tower. And with me is a man who speaks fluent dupe. It's my pal Ruben. Hey Ruben, how the heck are you today?
Doing good. Back from a short trip to Portland and a weekend where I was solo parenting. It's been kind of tiring. It's not a very restful weekend or week, but
it can be a little sapping of the energy to have those kids with no one to hand them off to when you need just a minute. So any coffee spilling today? Any issues of that nature? Have you cleared all that up? That seemed quite popular on the Slack. People were really into that. So
I know.
If there's
People
any
really
sequels
into
to
me being
that,
a bumbling idiot. No, not today, but
well,
there will be forthcoming bumbling idiot moments, I'm sure.
From both of us, I'm sure. For instance, I actually need advice, Ruben, on something housework related. Maybe you can help me with this. Maybe a listener or a member of the GFC can help out. How can I get the smell of butter out of my bed sheets? Now nothing sexy going on here.
Kinky love life. That's all I'm thinking.
This is not a Last Tango in Paris situation, anything like that. All that happened is I cleaned out the inside of my microwave with a dishcloth after, some butter had spilled. Then I washed that dishcloth in the same load of laundry as the sheets. And I've washed the sheets again by themselves 2 more times, hot water. They still smell like melted butter, which, can be okay in some situations, but that's not what I need as I'm trying to, relax and get to sleep. So
baking soda. That's
baking soda.
Yeah, throw it in with your laundry detergent. Baking soda absorbs every smell. It's pretty impressive.
I've actually thrown it over to the Chat GPT or whatever, and I've got suggestions like some of that OxyClean or soaking it in baking soda beforehand. So I'll try something like that. But just it's crazy how this scent just won't go away. But that's enough about my housework issues. Comic book wise, Ruben, we neglected to mention last week, but this past Saturday was Free Comic Book Day. Is that a holiday you tend to celebrate?
No, I like the idea of it, but I hate the reality of just picking up something that's going to clutter my desk. So I always look for Free Comic Book Day copies on Comixology, and that's pretty ineffective. You get 1 or 2 of the biggest ones.
Yeah, DC was there. I haven't seen the Marvel ones there. So I did make my annual pilgrimage into the land of physical comics. It's scary out there, Ruben. There's people and stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, they're still putting comics on actual paper. I don't know if I really knew that so much. This year's X-Men story is part of the issue with Fantastic Four on the cover. So if you're looking for the X-Men, look for that. They're pushing Fantastic Four because of that little movie that's coming out soon. And after a pretty decent Ryan North Fantastic Four story, the main X-Men story in this issue is by Lansing and Kelly. They're the brain trust, Ruben, what they call themselves. And this is essentially a scene inserted into 1975's giant-size X-Men. So have you seen this story at all, or that you're hearing about it for the first time?
Nope.
Okay.
You're delivering cutting off the press news for me.
Brand new information.
Yes.
All it is we see Cyclops in a kind of a danger room scenario testing out the abilities of all those newly introduced characters. I'm sure you've read Giant Size, right? Classic.
Yes, yeah.
So the idea is that most of the original 5 are trapped on the island of Krakoa, back when it was just, the original Krakoa, and all these new characters are recruited to try to rescue them. And here, this new scene, Scott wants to kind of test them out, see if they have what it takes. So he's testing out, we see Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, Storm, Colossus, all those people. And then at the very end of that scene, Scott goes off on his own and gets a pep talk from, who do you think, Ruben? Who do you think he goes and talks to at the end of this scene, written by the Brain Trust, inserted into giant-size X-Men?
Oh, man. I feel like I should know because it's going to be some stupid character that they created, but my knee-jerk would just be Xavier.
No, they go and they talk to Kamala Khan. Because that's the premise of all these anniversary giant-size one-shots coming up that they're writing. Kamala Khan gets to revisit the greatest hits of the X universe, and the first one that she visits coming up on May 28th is when this issue hits, is the original giant size. So how actually she gets there, we don't know.
That just offends me.
Well, that's the premise of 5 issues we're going to have to talk about. So. Yeah.
What the fuck is her mutant power? That's all I want. And I already know what it is. It's going to be that stupid,
solid
light thing from the MCU. So we just need to pull the Band-Aid off already and just move on with our life.
I doubt we're actually going to get that nailed down in this series of one-shots, but I guess it's possible. So that's that story. The other X-related story in the Free Comic Book Day issue is an actually pretty funny one-shot written and drawn by Chip Zdarsky. He did Batman, he's done Sex Criminals, does a bunch of stuff. He's going to be doing, Captain America real soon, right? I think that's what he's coming up on. And this one shot is about a bickering couple from what looks like to be our real world, who for comedic reasons, they wind up transported into the 616, and they get their own superhero identities. They are Wolverpool and Deadverine. There you go. So this couple technically... It's funnier than it sounds when I say it like that, actually. The couple technically had their first appearance in a crowd scene in a book we didn't read, Ruben. They first appeared in Concert of Champions.
That's already out. I missed that. Top quality.
Yeah, we skipped that one. And okay. It's actually a pretty funny little story. The final panel had a joke that I guffawed out loud at. I'm not going to give it away, but it was pretty funny, worth a read. Mm-hmm. So that was our nonsense to start the show. We have just the one actual book to talk about this week, which is NYX number 10, and I have a sound effect for that. There we go. So to add some more stuff to talk about this week, Ruben had the idea, you heard about it last week, listeners, if you listened in, that we're going to take just a few minutes and we're going to talk about just what questions we have about stuff going on in the X universe as of right now, the beginning of May 2025.
Yeah.
But first, as we do about 6 out of every 7 episodes, it is time to talk about this week's Infinity comic. So today we are talking about Astonishing X-Men number 20. I Have Seen Tomorrow Part 2, written by Tim Seeley, art by Eduardo Ordino, colors by KJ Diaz, letters by Clayton Cowles. So, last week, we saw Banshee, Husk, and Skin head to Las Vegas in full brand new X costume to investigate the death of a social media influencer and media activist, or mutant activist, Rhoda Forcebeams. Rhoda had been in a flame war with the followers of another influencer, a Joe Roganish type of guy named Tad Brody. But when our heroes confronted Tad, he basically begged them for help to extricate himself from a bad situation. Also, there was an odd scene where Mutant Liberation Front guy Wildside met up in the desert with anti-mutant guy Executioner, and the Executioner gave him what looked like a plain old smartphone. Yeah. So we're going to see a little more of that coming up too, but I still don't quite get it. In this chapter, we begin with a flashback to the moment of Rhoda's untimely death. She was at an influencer conference when either she jumped, fell, or was pushed off the roof or a high-up window of the hotel. Landed on the hotel's awning. Now, Ruben, in movies, aren't awnings supposed to be a completely get-out-of-death-free card, right? You just dust yourself off and you
it's
walk
like a pillow,
away.
right? Like a giant pillow.
That's what I've learned from TV. So apparently not in comic books though, because Rhoda, she's completely dead. Tim Seeley has fun showing us the other influencers all rushing in to take video of poor old Rhoda's dead body. We've got trad wife influencer Mimi Blount, fitness influencer Kurt Swole, game influencer NPCZ, fashion influencer Shayla Winters, and comedy/politics influencer Cole Broden. Ruben, I'm a bit of a fitness influencer myself. I'm fitness all this tea inside my mouth. We know people like coffee and tea talk, so today, Ruben, I'm drinking, it's called Hoji Cha. It's a roasted green tea. Yeah. And I am, yes, fitting a lot of it inside my mouth.
Yeah, you're drinking it for now. I don't know if you're going to be able to afford it after you told me your website went down because of the tariffs.
I have stocked up. We're not getting into politics stuff, but yes, one of my favorite websites to order from now is a big banner saying we can no longer ship to the United States because of, well, Yeah.
So I bring it up as a tragedy, not a political point. You're such a very particular tea person. You're going to be back to Twillings.
Oh, no, not Twillings.
It's going to be the future. You'll be like, I'm drinking Earl Grey.
I've actually organized my collection, my little dragon hoard of tea, and I've done the math, and if I limit myself to 5 grams of tea per day, I can go a year before having to buy any.
Okay.
So that's
mess will be cleared up in a year, I gotta imagine. You're not going to be down to Lipton's.
I'll have to take those tea bags and just tape them to my arms like a patch and try to wean myself.
Yeah.
Oh, back in the actual comic, though, in the present, we return to our heroes and Tad Brody. Tad tells us that his flame war with Rhonda was all just a ruse. It's kayfabe, as they say in the wrestling world. The two of them had agreed behind the scenes to do a fake argument just to raise both of their profiles, get a bunch of new followers, and it worked really well. Mm-hmm. But now, Tad thinks that the flat scanners must have learned that it was all a fake. He thinks that the flat scanners killed Rhoda, and that they're probably after him next. So, the mutants are going to wander around the convention floor tomorrow and see if they can stir up any flat scanner activity. And she hands Tad a crystal glass and tells Tad to use it like a Jimmy Olsen signal watch. Right? Just tap it, it'll ring, and because of his... Does Banshee have special hearing powers?
I didn't think so, but apparently he seems to think so. He also pours himself like a bourbon or something, which I was like, you're drinking on job, dude. That's not maybe the right...
Well, is he pouring it for himself, or is he trying to settle down Tad? Like, you need a stiff drink to kind of chill out there, buddy.
No, he drinks it. He pours it, and then you see him drinking it. Yep.
Oh, well.
Yes, he needs to calm himself down. Then he gives him that's gross. He drinks it, and then he gives Tad the...
he is Irish. I'm not for nothing, but I'm just saying it's get us a clock somewhere. Like that.
He's just got to make sure it works, right?
He's testing it for poison.
Yes, okay.
He's just looking out for his buddy here.
I will say, if somebody pours me a stiff drink and they take a sip, I'm not drinking it.
I'm sure the alcohol in there would kill anything. It's fine.
I see.
It's fine. But yeah, I guess Banshee. We know Banshee has sound making powers. That's how he flies around, which is kind of ridiculous. But I guess maybe he can hear really well too. So the next morning, the mutants do go out on the convention floor. Husk, she sees in person, in the flesh, so to speak, Cece Werblowski, who is that influencer that she imitated at the pub back in Ireland. Kind of funny. Banshee gets all up in the face of conspiracy podcasters peddling nonsense about Genosha, which makes me wonder, how long do you think Genosha was in universe? It's got to be a pretty long time ago. Lots of stuff has happened since then, right?
Yeah, it's got to be at least 10 years. And I'm checking with Perplexity. Yes, Banshee has super hearing. He can focus on, enhance, and completely block out any sound in his environment.
Well, if Perplexity says so, I'll ask Perplexity about my laundry question again later.
Yeah, apparently that's how he protects himself from destroying his ears from his own sonic streams.
I could sure he has to be able to close off his ears, but then can he listen? It's comics. He can do it. It's fine. So Banshee, who there is arguing with this podcaster person. Never argue with podcasters, people. It's a tough job. Banshee himself is confronted by Mondo. Do you remember Mondo?
No.
Mondo, he's another Generation X character. All these, we're bringing back all of Generation X here. Mondo, here he's wearing a T-shirt advertising a podcast called The Piece of Fist. I don't know if that's a fist pun or what.
Okay. It says he can take the powers of whatever he touches, so he's absorbing man.
Are we doing a podcast? Or you playing with perplexity? Come on.
I'm learning about stuff this way.
So Mondo was part of the New Mutants bit that Hickman did early on in Krakoa. Yeah. That little team that went off into space and found the egg. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Mondo was part of that. But that's kind of the last time we saw him. He did pop up a couple times in New Mutants after Hickman left, but we didn't see a lot of him. So, yeah.
This is crazy because I'm reading Generation X, and I do not remember this guy at all. Oh, wait, no, I'm reading Generation Hope. Never mind. Okay, I'm off the hook.
Different generation.
Different generation, yes. Yeah. Okay.
So Mondo's origin is tied up with Black Tom. At one point, Black Tom made a clone of him. It was a whole thing. So Mondo mentioning Black Tom here in his introduction, it does tie together.
Is it a better clone than what Mr. Sinister made?
Obviously. I mean, a department store mannequin that I put a beard on would be a better clone of me than what Mr. Sinister made. So we don't get to see what Mondo is up to now because the scene cut short. Yeah. And we finish up this chapter back in the hotel room with podcaster Tad. Mm-hmm. He's being visited by Wildside, and I don't recognize these guys. Must be some other Mutant Liberation Force types. Do you know any idea who these dupes are?
No.
It's a redheaded gal and a big muscly dude. Doesn't hard to Google those on a story that just came out a couple hours ago.
They look like anime characters.
I guess a little bit. There's a little bit of a Wildside especially looks like an anime character, just the way he's got the pointy ears and the diamonds around his eyes.
Yeah.
So it seems, it's not entirely clear, but it seems that Tad didn't tell Banshee everything. There's another level to the deal that Tad made with poor old dead Rhoda. The MLF was part of it, and was the MLF responsible for her death, you think? Is that what happened?
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like Wildside talks about he wanted to keep her alive. I'm very confused. I also think maybe the phone that was given to them might have been to connect them with an influencer. It's very confusing to me, what's going on.
I think it's supposed to be mysterious, so we're not supposed to know what's going on. So Wildside says, like little Rhonda, I think I've gone back and forth between saying Rhonda or Rhoda, but her name is Rhonda. Sorry, dead Rhonda. Like little Rhonda, I didn't want her to die. I just needed to know who she told. So I take that to mean, I didn't intend to kill her, but I kind of killed her, is how I read that. But it's not perfectly clear. And then, he talks about making a deal with Tad on this very phone, holding up the phone and then crushing it. And then, he kind of threatens Tad. So presumably we'll find out in the next chapter or two what's really going on, but so far kind of mysterious. Still a pretty fun read. Well worth the $0 that I paid for it. Kind of happy to see Mondo again. So still worth reading in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Still pretty good, you think?
Yeah.
Or is it too confusing for you?
No, I don't mind the confusion, right? It's not like this is the last chapter. So it'll be all sorted out, I'm sure. I do like that their unifying look is like the red scarf. It kind of cracks me up.
I'm not sure if that's an existing MLF trope, but they all have these kind of you shouldn't ride a motorcycle wearing a scarf like that. That could be dangerous. This big red scarf that kind of flows around them. Looks pretty cool, though.
And now they're the Mutant Salvation Front, which...
Oh, that's what it says. Yes, it's Mutant Salvation Front, the MSF. Makes me think of Life of Brian and the Judean People's Front, the People's Front of Judea.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've all split off from each other. So, that is the Infinity comic. Still pretty good. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. So now let us move on to our question segment. So Ruben, I'll turn it over to you. How do you want to get this started?
Yeah, I think we'll just go back and forth, maybe spend 10 minutes on this or longer. But my vision was top 5 intriguing, outstanding questions. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in-our-face questions from this era. Most of mine are actually just holdover questions from Krakoa era.
Oh, okay.
But I guess I'll ask the first one. So I'm very curious this is pretty easy, but what's going on with 3K, who the members are. All we know is Cassandra and Wire at this point, right?
Right.
And
there's
then
another couple, including one that's like a pair of characters, one standing behind the other. So we definitely need to know who those
So there's
people
at least
are.
2 more characters that we need to know. We don't know what their agenda is. All we know is they're creating adult onset mutants. We don't know why. And they're also seemingly trying to kill mutants and conducting tests. It's sort of bizarre.
They're connected with Piper and Twinsy, and we don't know why or how or what they're up to. So yeah, lots of mysterious things going on with 3K.
And I even want to know, I mean, I'm the organization guy, right? Like, I think way too much about villainous organizations in comics. But I'm like, why are there 4 of them at a table, right? And they seem to have, like, segmented domains of expertise. I just need to know a lot more about this group.
I mean, that is a secret organization kind of thing, right? You all have these giant circular tables and darkened rooms with a little bit of light coming from really, really low. So they have these shadows that are like 80 feet long. Yep. It's just whoever does the interior decorating for the bad guys has a look. And that's what they do.
All right, what's your number 1?
First,
no particular order, by the way. We're just kind of asking questions.
Nope, I got a ton of stuff jotted down here, and I'll just pick some out. I really want to know, Ruben, why did Colossus choose to hide his identity and pretend to be Tank?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I feel like that was not going to be answered at all. And is he, now that he's like revealed himself, is he going to be still Tank?
I don't think so. He kind of took the mask off, and did he drop it? Like, I'm done with this kind of a feel to it. Tank no more.
Yeah.
Tanks,
the only thing
no
I can think
tanks.
of is, like, is it part of his shame of having been manipulated by his brother in the last era?
Very well could be. I mean, like we say often, a lot of characters had a rough time at the end of Krakoa, and he certainly did. He had, he was mind controlled basically by Chronicler, Chronicler was in the service of his brother.
Yeah.
So he betrayed his team, but unwittingly.
Yeah.
So that certainly could tie in. And we know that this whole situation was kind of referenced in an issue of Jed MacKay's X-Men, because he was playing chess by mail with his sister.
Yeah, nobody knew who it was. Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking that given that X-Force is kaput, that maybe Jed MacKay will pick up this plot point and have him be a guest star or something down the road in X-Men, or at least have a little side story, side plot, couple panels explaining what's going on. So I think we'll get something about it, even though Jeff Thorne didn't get to do the reveal he wants. And Jeff Thorne hasn't published yet his on Patreon. He publishes some writing, and eventually he says he's going to give like a synopsis of what his plan was. So when that comes out, I'm definitely going to read it, but I don't know yet.
Yep.
Okay, Ruben, back over to you.
I'm still curious what's going on with that Krakoan seed that I think is with Doom. Is that right? It was in NYX, and then they swapped it, and they thought they recovered it, but it was like a dupe. So I would think that means that Doom's mutants got the actual seed to Doom, but like, what does he want to do with it?
I thought that they stole the seed from Doom, and that's the seed that does the whole thing in NYX we're going to talk about today. Okay. I think that seed gets used up in NYX and is off the board.
It shows how closely I'm reading NYX then. So who stole the seed then?
That was the scene from a couple issues. Well, like the last issue of NYX, there was one of Doom's X-Men.
Yes.
And she was carrying the seed with her for reasons we couldn't understand.
Yeah.
And somehow they got it away. Mojo got it away from her.
Okay, so Mojo got it from her. Okay.
And then, again, there was a confusing bit at the end of the issue where there was a dupe seed made to make the NYX people think they had recovered the seed.
Right.
And really, Mojo still has the real seed.
Got it. Okay.
I think.
Well, you're going to have to really do some heavy lifting on the NYX part, because I have no idea what's going on there, I guess. All right, what's your next one?
Let's see. Here's one. In the upcoming Emma Frost flashback miniseries, or continuity insert, right? Because we're going to get this miniseries about her back in the Hellfire days. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious. Will she be portrayed then as a full-on villain like she was at the time? Or because she's kind of an anti-hero right now, is that characterization going to kind of leak back into the past?
Yeah, I'm guessing it's going to leak back. They've been doing some retconning recently where they're like, I was just pretending to be a villain back then because I needed to be for self-preservation reasons, which I think is totally BS. Like, she was very clearly running like a, anti-hero. Mm-hmm. I was a hero of an anti-villain group.
Trying to make her look like she was kind of being exploited and she was reacting to that situation. But she had agency. She did some really bad stuff. So
I wish they would get away from that. I wish they would just say, look, I was a villain. I learned some lessons. I changed. Like, it happens, right?
Mhm.
I don't need to have this whole story of, I was secretly a good person all along. And
Now, it can be hard to have a miniseries where the main character is a villain.
Yeah.
Right? You want to make your main character do at least some good things. So that could be tough. But I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yep.
Okay, over to you.
Here's an easy one, but I'm surprised this hadn't come up again. I remember we saw the Sugar Man in one of these issues. I couldn't figure out where we saw him.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what
tied
the hell
up with
up to?
those that was in the X-Men, I do believe.
It just kind of like popped up, and he was like in the back half of the issue, like he had some scheme going on, but it was kind of unclear.
Wasn't he the one? There were those that name of that group of people who were like gambling on who could kill the most mutants. I forget the name of that team. The Upstarts.
You think he was
Wasn't he connected with the Upstarts?
I know he was in that issue, but I didn't know if he was like running the Upstarts or like.
I thought maybe.
Okay.
Again, I haven't thought about this part of the story for months, but that's what my brain says.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense. And since we're talking about Upstarts, I'll throw in my other question related to that. So I'm just curious, what is Fitzroy up to? And related, like he was always a Bishop villain, and I started thinking, like, have we even seen Bishop recently? I couldn't think of any time like that he's popped up, and I wouldn't mind seeing some Bishop. I like that character.
Yeah, I'd like to see Bishop for sure. Okay, back to me.
Yep.
This is going to be a 2-for-1. It involves both Wolverine and Jean Grey, and no, it's not about them in the hot tub. Because we had kind of the same plot point at the end of recent arcs of both of them, where Wolverine, it seemed like his dead mother's not so dead.
Yeah.
And in Phoenix, it seems like the dead sister's not so dead. So I'm kind of curious, will either or both of these characters really be alive? I'm gonna be very cynical, and I'm gonna say that these are both fake fraud phonies, not actually who they purport to be.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's right. I think it would be an interesting character development. I always kind of like reintroducing, deceased family members, because it, in theory, gives you, some interesting stories to come out of that. But I don't know. These are two characters that I feel like are super established, and nobody seems to want to get beyond. For Wolverine, like, oh, my tragic past.
Yeah, let's retcon his past again.
Yeah. It would be nice to come up with
revisited so many times.
It would be interesting to have a new family member or an old dead family member back, and then like tell stories about how they're interacting, having this big gap in time. But they won't do that, right? They'd rather just tread back to like this tried and true. Like, I don't know what my past was, and I'm broody and
poking at the trauma. Right, poke the sore spot over again.
Yeah, and then for Jean, it just seems like there's going to be infinite, like, I'm connected with the universe and the Phoenix Now stories, and they don't seem to tell anything other than that story.
That's what it seems like. So if either are for real, I'm going to guess that Jean's sister is more likely to be real, just because Jean's all tied in with cosmic weirdness. So the universe wants to bring her sister back. Universe can bring her sister back. Okay, your next question.
Yeah, so this is a bunch of questions all tied together. I really want to know what the hell's going on with Arakko right now. I thought that idea of like terraforming Mars was a little stupid, but then they did it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. This is a new galactic, location, and I'm kind of more into the cosmic stuff than a lot of people.
Yeah, they really committed to it. They had a ton of characters there. They put Storm there, so they put some name characters there. They made it a different kind of place than Earth. Like, it really felt like a different society. So they put all this work into it, and then it just kind of stopped. So I haven't been reading it. It's that Power Man. What is it called?
Timeless. Power Man Timeless or something like that.
Yeah, that's where they're talking about Arakko right now, right?
Yeah, it showed up surprisingly, yeah. So that's my question. Sub-question would be like, did Aeon the Knife actually destroy the entirety of Arakko? And that would suck if they did. And related to like named characters, we've at least seen Storm on Earth, right? She's got a little UFO. I'm like, it's got to have come from the Arakko side of things. It makes no other sense why she has like a UFO with hippos inside of it.
Yeah, that is definitely on my list of questions. Is basically what's the deal with that whole floating fortress? Where do the dead robot kaiju engines come from?
Yeah,
is it related to that power plant kaiju we saw in Storm issue #1?
Yeah.
So yeah, that can be connected to the Arakko questions.
Yeah, and I'm just like, is she still the region of Mars? I mean, if she is, then I should say region of Arakko. If she is, like, shouldn't she be doing some of her stately duties? And if she's on Earth, like while Araka's getting like completely wrecked by the oh gosh, I always forget the stupid group's name. I think I told you they were recently. They're not the X-Men. They're like the fake X-Men that are like Kree adjacent.
Okay, yeah. I'm not reading this book.
Inhumans.
So.
There we go. Inhumans.
Inhumans. Yeah.
So if Aeon's an Inhuman, does that mean the Iraqi are going to be at war with the Inhumans? Which I know you tell me
Marvel's an Inhuman, so is Ms. Marvel going to get hooked up or caught up in this? That could be fun.
Yeah, and this would be a good storyline, right? She's like half mutant, half Inhuman.
That sounds like more fun than bringing her back to giant size X-Men.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind like a big throwdown Inhuman versus Iraqi war. That'd be a pretty cool storyline in my mind. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we got Sobinar. Like, how did he get to Earth? I'm curious about that. Is Apocalypse dead? I mean, you tell me no. He probably. I can't believe that he would be killed off in in Power Man Timeless, but it sure looked like he was.
Seems unlikely.
It sure looked like he was.
It's Al Ewing, right? Is Al Ewing writing that?
No, it's the Brain Trust.
Well, the Brain Trust, Kelly and Lansing. Okay.
Yeah, they don't have the authority to kill off Apocalypse, do they?
Yeah, and well,
then it's like Doug Apocalypse,
it's kind of funny,
right?
because
that could be the trigger for him to be like going crazy if Apocalypse is dead.
How long is that Power Man book supposed to go? Is it an ongoing? Is it a mini?
No, it's just 5 issues. So we got like
because they've said that when they're done with this giant size project, they're leaving Marvel for a while. So I guess that matches up if presumably that the Power Man book is going to wrap up even before Giant Size does. So
yeah, it's got to be.
Then they'll be done.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a few questions about Exceptional X-Men.
Okay, lay it on me.
Number 1, does Kitty still work at that restaurant, or has it been shut down for its many, many health code violations? Because we haven't seen her at the restaurant in a lot of issues. But slightly more seriously, I'm still wondering, is something suspicious going on with Kitty's roommate, Pretty?
Oh, yeah, the one's just like super chill and cool with like all the...
Yeah, her family owns the apartment they're living in, and the family happens to own this kind of warehouse space that they're using for training. It just seems too good to be true. I'm waiting for her to be revealed to be, I don't know, Apocalypse or somebody disguised.
No, she's a Sinister clone. That's the secret. I'm calling it now.
Could be. Something weird seems to be up with her, so I'm curious what's going to happen with that.
I mean, I would say that would be a nice twist, right? If she was, and then the whole like crappy-ass, falling apart clone was sort of a dupe to make you forget the Sinister actually knows what he's doing.
That'd be fun. I could go with that. All right, your turn.
Some of my characters that I love that just haven't shown up. I want to know where they are and what they're up to. So Legion, he kind of like blipped out, but like you got to imagine he's coming back, right, at some point.
You think so? Eventually, he's got to come back.
Yeah, and then of course, and this is probably my number 1, but I seeded it this far into the questions to try to sound a little more responsible. Where is Abigail Brand? Everyone that knows me knows I would ask that one.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't think she would, or at least just tell me she's dead. I just need to know, like, the not resolution that we got in X-Men Red it did not seem like she was killed by the Fisherman, or Fisher King, or whatever the hell his name was.
Fisher King, right.
Yeah. It really seemed like he was like, you're going to go off on some spirit quest to...
Yeah, almost like a purgatory, pay for your sins, come out a better person the other end. Yeah, that seemed to be being set up, and we found out her actual name, which was what? Fanrir Guaxius, or something like that?
Yep.
And then we haven't seen her. So yeah, I'm still hoping for a Sage and Abigail Brand team-up book. Put what's his name from Mystique on it. Who was that writer-artist who just fell out of my head?
Oh, gosh. That'd be awesome. That'd be super sweet. But I can't remember.
Oh, Mystique, writer-artist. Declan Shalvey, of course.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Shalvey. I'm a big fan. Just your name fell out of my head. Declan Shalvey on that team-up book, Sage and Abigail Brand. It would sell literally dozens of copies.
2, 1 to you.
I'd actually buy it in physical. I'm committing now. I will go to the comic book store and buy that if it's done, because it just sounds like fun to me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Here's a versus kind of question. Okay. Which set of teen characters will have a longer shelf life? The new Exceptional X-Men or the Outliers from Uncanny X-Men? Which group of those do you think is actually going to be around down the line? It will be like picked up by other writers other than...
Which one's the Generation X that'll like in 20 years get a randomly cameo? They'll be back for some reason. in a webcomic.
Right. Who's actually going to stick around and who will be forgotten about? You have a prediction?
I feel like the Outliers have more lasting power, just because their powers are a little more interesting.
I think so too.
I don't really. The Exceptional Team, you've got the character that is basically Kitty, so you don't need to have that character, right? And then I guess you've got like the Mood. It's not even Mood. What is it? He's like
goth
people,
teen. Yeah, he's like he's empathic. He brings out people's. People tell him their secrets, that kind of thing. Yeah,
that guy. That's interesting, but it feels a lot like Doug Ramsey, right? Like it's really hard to tell stories kind of with power,
right?
Not on the page. And I know they added the whole like he changes skin color to like kind of make him a little more visually interesting, and so you know when the power's in play, which I think is kind of a good idea. But
I think that would work better in animation than it does on the comic book page, where it's hard to tell. Is he just in different lighting now? Where 8 panels later.
I didn't even realize that was part of his power until you mentioned it last week. I was like, oh.
Yeah, they mentioned early on that it happens, but it doesn't really assert itself on the page.
Yeah. But the Outliers have some more interesting things, right? Like, I really like Jitter, and I always forget her name, but I like the horse girl.
Calico,
yeah, because it's so bizarre and just ridiculous what the power is. The other ones I'm a little less into, but they're kind of, tied into Sunspot lore. And
yeah, they do feel like they have deeper hooks into like the central story of what's going on, where the Exceptional X-Men are way off on the side doing their own thing. And it does feel like if Eve Ewing doesn't keep writing about them, I don't see other writers picking them up.
And even Deathstream, who I feel like is just this over-the-top goth stereotype, at the same time, like, I can't think of another X-Men type character that's really tied into, like, manipulating death, and that seems like a very visceral type power, which makes total sense, right? So I could see that character being around for just this new type of power.
And while we're on the Outliers, and I'm going to keep calling the Outliers, you can call them whatever you want, but I'm going to say Outliers. I still need to know how they got together, right? Because their origin is literally all over the world.
Yep.
And they somehow wound up all together, kind of knowing each other.
It's actually on my
Louisiana.
list. That's on my list. How did they form? Yeah.
I figured, well, while we're talking about them, I'll throw them there. So, yeah, we need to know that. And that is, I feel like we're going to find out that story. Like, that is not something that they just forgot to tell us. We're waiting to have that shoe drop. And it's going to be related to maybe some villain put them together. It's going to be related to, what's that term for the not the lastling, the endling. One of them is going to turn out to be the endling. And I think maybe when we get the endling story wrapped up, their origin will be tied into there.
Yeah. Yeah, we still don't know who the endling is going to be, right? I don't even know if you have a strong opinion as to who it. I still think it might be Calico, but I don't know if there's any more.
Death Dream feels too obvious. Like that's the red herring. Clearly, the Death Kid is the one who's going to be all about the end. But yeah, Calico, the rich girl,
and even with we've had the Jitter Calico relationship kind of developing, right? And so then when Calico turns out to be the villain, it'll be more like shocking, right?
Right, emotional.
Yeah, in theory.
Okay, was that that was my question? So back to you.
Okay, I'm curious about and I don't know the term for it, but that mutant degeneration thing that is affecting Magneto.
Yes. That is on my list as well. It was, I forget there's an acronym for it, but yeah, we've been told that because Magneto was resurrection linked something.
Degenerative disorder or something.
Yeah. Because of that regeneration, something went wrong. He regenerated too many times, and now he's got this disease where he can't control his powers very well, or even his body.
I mean, the number one thing I want to know about that is a lot of people were resurrected a lot of times on Krakoa.
It sure seems that way, yeah.
The only one that really seems to be affected, and is it because of the way he came back through the Storm series, right, where she kind of brought him through Death's portal? Because if it's through the traditional, like, Krakoan mutant thing, it makes no sense to me that he's the only one that's got this, like, impacted power.
Nightcrawler, Quentin Quire have all been resurrected tons more times. Yeah. So I think we either need to find out that, either it's going to be a red herring, turns out to be not actually related to resurrection, right? There's going to be a twist. Or we need to get some other characters also showing symptoms. We got to go one way or the other.
The original 5, like, they basically all got sent to the Orcus Forge, like, a bajillion times. Do you remember that whole plot line where they're like, they die before we can download their brains, but they were just like sending their bodies or sending them.
Wolverine skeletons are all over the galaxy. This has been a plot point all over the place. So he's
so all those characters should be effed if this is really like, oh, if you got resurrected 10 or more times, then I didn't think Magneto got resurrected that much. It was like once, right? Because then he gave up
maybe more than once, but not near the. If you asked me like before this started, tell me mutant characters who got resurrected a lot on Krakoa. He would not be in my top 10 list.
I mean, I think he got killed like once fighting Nimrod, and then he made that deal with Storm where they gave up they committed not to come back through the resurrection process, right?
Right.
And then later,
in order
Storm
to be on the Great Circle of Araco.
Yeah, and then Storm brought him back through like the waiting room,
the mystical waiting room stuff.
Yeah.
Which, if anything, you'd think that going through this mystical resurrection should reset whatever damage was done, right?
One would think, yeah.
If anything, but yeah. So I'm actually going to put I'm going to put my money on. It's not actually connected with resurrection. It's something different.
Yeah,
that's
my
guess.
Makes more sense. Yeah. Sort of related. I want to know what's up with Mystique. We saw her in pretty rough shape at the end of the Mystique series. I know they did that really just to kind of take her out for a while and to kind of close the possibility of you speculating like, oh, that's just Mystique in disguise. But I don't think she's permanently depowered. Although it would be interesting to have like more of a story about, oh, she doesn't have powers. Like, what does that mean for her going forward? But I have a feeling she's just going to be gone, and then one day she'll be back randomly.
Yeah, I think that Declan Shalvey just told his story, and whether it was his idea or editorial's ideas to just end it, have her just go away for a while. So I think that she'll be back clearly because she's one of the main name characters in X-Men, and they all come back. So, but I think it'll probably be a while until they say, oh, she got better, and now whatever a new writer wants to do, they're just going to do. Other characters who I think we need to check in on, number one is Surge, right? Surge is now an energy being.
I forgot about that.
Right?
Yeah, so, it's pretty different.
That's going to have to be addressed somewhere. I think we need to see Cable somewhere in a main continuity title. I know he's got his own miniseries right now in some alternate future world, but I think we need to see what Cable's up to in the main storyline somewhere.
Yeah.
And just some very short-term things. We need to find out what happened to Quentin Quire, who for a couple issues now, he's been maybe dead, maybe alive in X-Men. And then in the very last issue of X-Men, Scott's plane was just smashed by a kaiju with him inside of it. Right. And no one even remarked on it. So I'm sure he's okay, but we do need to check in and see what actually happened there.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, while we're on characters from Jed McKay's X-Men, we gotta go deeper into Beast's situation, right? Because he's in a brand new status quo, brand new old status quo, where they've rebooted a version of him from years or decades ago, depending on how you want to count it. And he's kind of been on the side saying things, but we need a storyline really getting at the heart of what's up with our furry blue buddy.
Yeah. I've got some questions.
Go for it.
These are sort of in that vein, like what's going on with random characters. What about Lawrence Trask?
Yes, indeed.
He's in prison, and then his prison buddy, Fabian Cortez.
Oh, right, Fabian Cortez.
You got
poor
screwed.
Fabian Cortez.
But he's in Grey Malkin now, right? Like both of them?
I don't remember where Cortez is, probably. But yeah, Trask, for sure, he had his special magic amulet broken, which means he's getting flooded with visions of the future he can't control. So he's like a gibbering idiot, and he's chained up in Grey Malkin.
Yeah. And selfishly, I just want to check in on him so we can get some more like nonsense future vision stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not going to get it from Destiny, we need to get it from Lawrence Trask.
We need our precog doing some wacky predictions.
Yes.
And that was at the end of Sentinels. And speaking of the end of Sentinels, we saw Justin Seifert, Drumfire, and Lockstep kind of fly off into the sunset on the back of a rejiggered Mark VI Sentinel that now looks like it's out of an anime.
Yes.
And they just kind of flew off somewhere.
Where do you just hide that? Nobody.
That's going to show up on the radar. Yeah. So again, I think that's a lot like Mystique, where one writer told a story and then just ended it in an open-ended way so that somebody else can pick it up.
Yeah.
I hope somebody picks it up because that was kind of nifty.
I do too.
And one other thing out of Sentinels, the perimeter AI in Greymalkin.
Mhm.
There were kind of hints that something maybe wacky or suspicious was going on with that AI. And we know that AI in X-Men comics is always suspicious.
Yep.
So I'm waiting for a shoe to drop and for that, perimeter to get out of control. And then Greymalkin humans and the X-Men are going to have to team up against the AI. Although that does feel like just a redo of the end of the Fall of X.
Yeah.
But something's going to happen there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've only got one left, but
go for it.
This is another one of my like pet favorite topics. Like what's going on with the Children of the Vault. I mean, they're in the vault, right? Again, they lost another time, probably like the third or fourth time. And
they were mentioned in one of those prophecies that what's his name, Larry Trask, was babbling about at the end of Sentinels.
Yeah.
So whether there's a real plan for them or not,
I think it's really bizarre too that they just like everyone knows where they are. They're just behind a door, and everybody's just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll deal with them when the door reopens.
Yeah. Whenever a writer kind of runs out of ideas, we'll open that door again and see what pops out. And I guess I'm going to close on, I'm just going to get a gesture vaguely in a direction and say everything having to do with Charles Xavier and his daughter and his wife and everything that's going to come out in Imperial, a couple months from now.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff
and
there.
Her daughter.
And the Shi'ar and the people trying to take over and all the stuff that Hickman's going to do trying to remake the Marvel Cosmic Universe. Okay, that was a bunch of questions. So, listeners out there, members of the Get Fresh crew, Beep Boop, if you have any other questions or if you think you have answers to any of those, do please let us know through the usual channels. Okay, moving on now from that fun segment.
Very quickly, I noticed neither of us asked about the adamantine.
No, couldn't care less about adamantine. That's fine. I never need to see that again. He just pieced out, and he can be gone forever. That turned out to be boring. Started okay, turned out boring.
All right.
Now, speaking of starting out okay and turning out boring, that's too mean. I don't mean it that way. But we are moving on to NYX number 10. It is written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who we've been talking about. Art by Francesco Moratrino. Colors by Raul Angulo. And letters by Joe Sabino. So, Ruben, it has been a long time since we have talked about NYX.
Yeah. That's probably why I don't remember what happened about the Krakoa seed.
Well, I think what happened was because issue 9 was part of X-Manhunt, right? They had to move that up in the schedule. So issue 9 came out kind of right after issue 8. Mm-hmm. And since then, it's been 8 weeks in between issues now. So basically 2 full months. And I think that's why I had to go back and do some rereading to figure out what's going on. But now it is indeed time to wrap up volume 2 of NYX. So in retrospect, I think I can say that this volume was really about Kamala Khan confronting a variety of ideas about what it means to be a mutant in this post-Krakoa world. Mm-hmm. I think that was the big idea. And really this is exemplified by a lot of the characters that she ran into in that first issue. For instance, she met up with Sophie Cuckoo, who I think represents just kind of being over it, like unfocused anger, disillusionment about the current state of the world. Mm-hmm. And then she ran into Prodigy. Now, Prodigy was seeking kind of security and acceptance and status in the human world, kind of putting Krakoa behind him, kind of using his status almost as a victim on Krakoa to get this new status as a professor among humans. Mm-hmm. Then we had Laura Kinney, who was basically a Batman figure, but just protecting mutants. Like, my people are in danger. I'm going to be, the scary person in the night and protect them. Yeah. And we also had Hellion, who at that time was pretending to be the Krakoan, and he was basically up for old-style Magneto-type war between mutants and humans. Yeah. And I think Ms. Marvel was kind of being presented with these. And by the end of the final issue, she doesn't really choose to follow any of them, which is probably for the best, as all those characters have at least a couple of screws loose, right? Even the best of them are kind of off.
Can I point out something I thought was super awkward and weird?
Sure, go for it.
So there's like a character detail page, right, for this issue, and they just do like headshots of everybody.
Yeah, the dramatis personae, if you want to be fancy.
If you look at local,
cast of characters.
he's got a bloody nose.
Look at local. He's got a... Yeah, he does. Well, I mean, these are just... They kind of
just like
there's
they
not
take the
new art. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they just take the art, but I was like, come on, man, like clean it up a little bit for this guy. Can you imagine if that was like your headshot in like a TV show that you starred in, and they picked the one shot with your nose like gushing blood?
That, or like you're missing, and the one picture they put up, look out for this person. He got lost in hiking a mountain or something, and it's you looking your absolute worst you've ever looked, with like your finger up your nose and kind of a dumb look on your face. Also, it's kind of fun that besides local, that Hellion and Kaiden both get promoted to main character status on this page for one issue. Yeah. So you made it, and now you're done.
This is the end of NYX, right? I don't have to read this crap anymore. Okay, this
is the end of it. It's so much the end of it that the people who wrote it are leaving Marvel. It is done, and we know Ms. Marvel's going to pop up in places, but I read somebody writing on, I think it was the House to Astonish. House to Astonish. I think in the comment section there, someone was saying that Ms. Marvel's kind of a tough character because she's not really big enough to carry a solo title. Mm-hmm. Right? They tried a couple times, didn't really work. Yeah. But she also doesn't work so great in a team kind of a book because she doesn't have an obvious team to be part of. Yeah. So she's just going to keep popping up in places because clearly Marvel has us as a character they want to keep pushing.
Yeah. I think she's the only real like teenage, big-eyed, kind-hearted type character they've got at the moment, right? Because they kind of aged up Peter Parker a little bit.
Yeah, I guess Spider-Boy, they did that a little bit with. Yeah. But, I can't think of too many others.
I think that's one of the reasons they push her so hard.
They're trying that new book of young teen characters. I haven't read it. I can't even think of it. It's the new somebodies.
But that's what they should do. They should just send her off on some teen book.
Could be.
She could be part of the team.
So, that's Ms. Marvel's thing. And when I think about this book in the abstract, right, the ideas behind the book, what it means to be a mutant, these different kind of possible ways of facing the world, I like it in the abstract. Yeah. But the concept sounds great. But the actual book itself, like as it's published, page to page, panel to panel, didn't really live up to my hopes for what a book like this could be. Yeah. So this, final issue of NYX has two parts. In the first part, we deal with Mojo, and in the second part, we deal with Cousin Bilal. First, we have an opening 9-panel grid of graffiti, which very much echoes the opening page of issue number 1. Mm-hmm. I put these side by side because they're clearly meant to be looked at side by side. This issue's graffiti montage, it's much more in a warm daytime kind of a tone. Lots of reds and yellows and oranges. Issue 1's was cool and mysterious purples and greens, that kind of a look. Mm-hmm. In this issue, the characters in these 9 panels are all looking towards us. We see their faces. Whereas in issue 1, they're almost all looking away from us. We only see the backs of characters' heads, other than Caliban, who was looking up at us through a sewer grate. So if I was going to be writing an AP English essay about this, I'd say maybe it's supposed to represent the idea that over the course of the series, Lansing and Kelly want us to have arrived at a more sunny, hopeful way of looking at the world of mutants interacting with humanity. Yeah. I could get at least a 4 on an AP test writing about that. But now it's time to defeat Mojo. And they've only got about 10 pages to do it. Go ahead.
I didn't like the X office thing that was stuck on one of the pieces of graffiti. I was like, that's a really annoying, third wall breaking element.
I was trying to figure, I looked at that a lot, and because it is referring to the actual X office, but is that what they would call it in the NYX? I couldn't decide. So it is, it did bring me out of the book a little bit. So I guess in that sense, it was kind of a failure. But here they are in the NYX Community Center. They go up on the roof and they see that Mojo has merged with, I think that last Krakoan seed, the real one, and he's grown Mojo Krakoa tendrils all over and around the buildings of Manhattan.
And I guess that makes sense. That's why I have the orb things. That was the Krakoa look.
Yes, those red bulbs and the green vines. That's very much Krakoa look.
What a wasted use of the last X seed.
Yeah, and I can't imagine this was the intent. When we saw Doom's X-Men person steal that in one of the last books before the Fall of X.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, we'll give it to Mojo. I don't think that was what the plan was.
And do you think this is like One World Under Doom timeline?
It's gotta be, because there have been crossover issues of NYX talking about Doom.
Yeah. I wonder what he's thinking about this when he gets the report showing the Krakoan seeds taking over New York.
I would love to see this referenced, because clearly the seed was a big thing for him. Yeah. I want to see him find out that he doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Also, Mojo uses the term work island, which I'm too old to get, but according to Google, that's a Gen Z term that people on the Tiki-Taki use to mean Manhattan. Like if you live around, like you live in Brooklyn, but you go to Manhattan for work and then you come home again.
Yeah.
So is that a term you're familiar with, Ruben?
No,
you're not cool enough either?
No, unfortunately not.
Well, I learned something. So Mojo has absorbed a bunch of people and a bunch of mutants, including Kaiden and Local, and in a very unclear kind of way, some combination of mutant energy and Krakoan seed and Mojo belief power is making him just grow out of control and take things over.
Yeah.
Is there anything more concrete than that, or is it all just all that hand-waving?
I think that's the extent of it. I don't even know what Mojo's point here is. Like, what's he trying to accomplish? Just he wants this? That's not one of my objectives, right? I don't want to merge with some plant and spread across the city.
Yeah, usually he's more clever. He wants people watching his TV show. He wants ratings. Here he's much more of just a standard take over the world kind of a villain.
Yeah. He's like a psychic parasite, right? Like, I thought he needed ratings in order to be powered.
Ratings, clicks, all that kind of media kind of a sense is always what he's been about. Another thing that I always wonder about in situations like this, and I know it's a comic book, you just got to accept it, but aren't there kind of famously a lot of other superheroes in New York? Right? We're not in the middle of Omaha, Nebraska or something. We're in New York City. We've got Spider-Man, we've got Daredevil, we've got She-Hulk, we've got the other Spider-Man,
the Avengers.
We've got Jackpot. I mean, Jackpot should be all over this, right?
Oh, yes, Jackpot. Well, that'd be too powerful, right? Like, just be over
right.
2 seconds.
Too for Jackpot. Jackpot, who's also Venom right now.
Yeah.
But no, this book is NYX, and so only NYX mutants get to be part of the solution.
Well, you know what it is. The other heroes just like wake up and they're like, that's some bullshit. Or they go back to sleep.
Oh, Mojo crap. That's not my problem. That's not one of mine. So, just like the big bad of the first arc was defeated by the power of intersectionality, the big bad of the second arc is defeated by the power of community.
Mm-hmm.
And this defeat was set up in issue 2, when the first time we saw Mojo, Laura confronted her, had to run away. He tells her that it's a numbers game. That's why she can't win. Mm-hmm. And even if you read those panels, she realizes that that'll be the key to defeating him.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it works is that Prodigy opens up his fancy folding smartphone and says that he has the ultimate weapon, a, quote, phone tree. Mm. Now, a phone tree is a very, very old-fashioned concept. Are you even familiar with this?
Mm-mm. I just thought it meant he had a lot of people on speed dial.
It used to be how, like, before the internet and stuff, this used to be how, like, school would tell people that there was some information to get out. Like, either school was canceled that day, or we're doing a field trip, something that had to be done really quick. Instead of the teacher individually calling all the parents, there'd be, like, almost like a tournament bracket kind of setup, but in reverse, where the teacher would call a few select parents, and those parents were assigned other names that they had to call. And those parents were assigned other names that they had to call, so that it would spread, like, exponentially. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why Prodigy is using this rather than, posting. He seems like a Blue Sky kind of guy. I don't think he's on Twitter anymore. Maybe he'd be on a group chat, Signal group, something. But no, he does. He makes several voice calls to Sync, to Sobunar. Sobunar has an old-fashioned flip phone. Funny looking panel. I don't know that it makes a hell of a lot of sense, but it's very funny to look at.
Yeah.
To Dupe and to the other 4 cuckoos as well. Now, Dupe's word balloon is written in that crazy Dupe font, but it's just a special font like for Cohen.
I didn't translate it, so lay it on me. What's he saying?
It can be translated. It's just that every gibberish symbol means a letter, and it translates to Dupe gibberish. It's literally what it says. So yeah, I spent the time doing that. That's what it says.
What a disappointment.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate. Call it an Easter egg, I guess.
Who's getting a call from Dupe, by the way? If now that you've explained what a phone tree is.
Oh, yeah. Maybe, does he call, like, Lockheed, maybe? I think those two could be buddies.
Yeah, he calls like 5 people, and they're just like, it's spam again, right? Or you're just like, this is some bullshit.
It sounds like a fax machine call.
Like, why do I always get this phone call? And he's been trying to communicate lots of important things over the years. I can't imagine people understand this, either.
I think in his original book, the Ecstatics type books, I think somebody understood him. I can't remember exactly. I think it was like Chewbacca, where Han Solo always understands, but nobody else does.
He could call Doug Ramsey. That's about it.
That'll be the new team up book. Doug Ramsey and Dupe.
Yes.
Now Doug Ramsey is going to be the new Doug Apocalypse. Doug Apocalypse and Dupe.
He should have been on our list,
Dupe
by
Apocalypse.
the way. Our list of interesting things. I am interested in Doug Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's true, but we also know that that's coming up in a couple issues of X-Men, so we know it's coming. So this phone tree, I guess, expands and calls in lots of other mutants, but then kind of redundantly, separately, Sophie Cuckoo, whose powers are either on the fritz or work perfectly depending on what the plot needs at the time.
Yeah, I really hated this. Because that was like a big plot point, right? Like
huge, yeah. She had severed connection with her sisters, and that had really thrown her, but then it didn't.
Now it's fine.
Now it's fine. Although she still mentions that it's not quite right, but it works perfectly when it needs to. She basically redoes what Kieran Gillen did at the end of Fall of X. We have almost the same pages here, where we get these pictures of her linking together all the mutants around and doing what our old pal Chris would have called a Care Bear stare, right? Just kind of the power of love, all looking at the big bad. Mm-hmm. And this page, this one pink page with all the faces, and just this giant paragraph of text down the middle. I'm not going to complain as much about text as some other hosts on this podcast family might, but this was egregious. This was not
weird faces too.
Not good.
That's like who is there?
It's got all the cuckoos, which seems like cheating, right? They just basically the artist basically copy and pasted one cuckoo 4 more times.
Yeah. The one with the David Bowie star, is that long shot?
Oh, near the top?
Yeah, it got kind of a big head.
Could be, yeah. Let's go with that.
I was like, I didn't even know he was on Earth at this point, but I guess dealing with Mojo, it kind of makes sense to reference him. And hey, is that Abigail Brand at the very bottom next to
the glasses?
Yeah,
maybe. And she's next to somebody with a diamond on his forehead. Is that Mr. Sinister?
No, that's Blink.
Oh, Blink. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure somebody's gone through all these characters. I don't know who they are, but the point is that
book is amazing. She's alive. Does that mean she's in New York?
She's part of the phone tree.
Yeah, somebody called her. All right, well.
Yeah, so we get, in this text, we get the word power, the word circuit, which used to be a big word, the word community, and we link through local. Local is a big deal here. Local has been absorbed by Mojo, and somehow connecting through local, who has this power to connect with things all over the city. Mojo gets defeated, and he's basically exploded. I'm sure he's not dead. He's banished back to the Mojo dimension until the next time a Marvel writer wants to dig him up.
Yeah. I love the Mojo look, but it's getting too esoteric as far as what the hell he does and how his powers work. I need somebody to really just write a grounded Mojo story if they're going to bring it back.
A really good one-time villain, but you either do the same exact thing again, or you do something where you go, hey, that's not what Mojo would do. Like this story, there's not really all that much Mojo about it. It could be any kind of a cosmic villain.
I liked it better with Mr. Friend. He was more interesting.
Yeah, Mr. Friend was kind of a cool frontman concept, and we don't get to see anything about that here. And during this last bit, we got a lot of narration boxes, and they were done in standard black text on a beige background. Took me a while to figure out who they were coming from, but these are from local, right? Do you agree with my conclusion there? I posted about this to the Slack.
I think that's right, yeah, because he's like the city, or he's merged with the city. And he's kind of talking about how the city's a mutant, and I'm not going to even try, but the use of English language makes it very unclear. Is it pronouns? Is that what it is? The use where you're like, who does you refer to?
Yes. And I think he's talking to Laura, who he knows as Scratch, and that's who he kind of first met up with early on in the series. Mm-hmm. And somehow he made a hero's choice to help focus this community energy, and in the process, he's not dead, but he's like absorbed within the city like a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a decently cool idea, but I don't imagine, again, that this is a character that another writer's going to pick up. Right? I don't think that, New York actually has a mutant in its blood, in its spirit haunting it. I don't think that's going to come up again. But again, decent concept. That's the first bit.
Why would Laura be proud of Kidden? That's the part that makes no sense to me. Where Local says, I hear you tell Kidden how proud you are for her. Like, proud for what?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what... I think I pronounce it Kaiden, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what Kaiden did. I know that, she misses her friend. She's happy to see her again. Whether it's more than a friend or not, I'm sure that'll depend on what the writers want to do.
Yes.
But, proud. I'm not quite sure what Kaiden did other than be one of 1,000 mutants that are part of this this whole sequence. Not sure. But anyway, Mojo's kaput. Now it's time to deal with Cousin Bilal. Bilal had got himself mixed up with one of those many anti-mutant groups running around these days. Not the Flat Scanners. This group is called the Truth Seekers.
Mm-hmm.
Only shown up in the NYX title, I think. Bilal had even fought Ms. Marvel using, like, Green Goblin glider tech. That's hard to say.
That was so annoying. That was like, as I said before, I thought it was ridiculous that he could just, like, hop on a Goblin glider and make use of it easily.
Yeah, maybe there's like a camp somewhere. Like you sometimes see those videos of terrorist camps where they're on like monkey bars and stepping quickly through tires. Maybe the Truth Seekers have a camp like that.
Yeah, or Cousin Bilal went with one of those groups, or he was like some
maybe I don't know
nerdy guy like drill sergeant giving him a weekend crash course in survivalism.
He seemed to use the glider pretty well. He must have learned somewhere. But here he just shows up to say mean things to Ms. Marvel, whom he doesn't know is his semi-beloved cousin Kamala.
Yeah.
Except that Kamala tells him off real good and then reveals to him who she is, that she is his semi-beloved cousin Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
Odd choice. Of all the people to reveal your secret identity to, why this jerk? He's shocked, says to her, never tell your parents, you'd break their hearts.
Yeah.
But Ruben, they used to know who she was. Right? Because back before the whole death and resurrection and Emma Frost mind-blaming, Kamala wasn't public, but her parents knew.
Yeah.
So she kind of knows that her parents would
accept
be more or less fine. Right.
Yeah.
They'd be concerned for her, they'd be scared for her, worried about her, but they wouldn't freak out.
Yes.
But now in the final scene of the whole series, Kamala's having dinner with her folks, her parents and brother, back in Jersey City.
Mm-hmm.
And while first she lies to them and says, oh yeah, I was nowhere near that craziness in the city today.
Mm-hmm.
And then she volunteers to her folks. Here's the exact quote, talking about Ms. Marvel. I hear she's like stopping for a while. Doesn't want to live as a mutant. Lie, all that. Sad, right? Now, Ruben, does this choice really seem to flow out of the journey Kamala's been through in this series?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Right? She just went through a big victory with all her mutant friends and team members. You'd think she'd be pretty high on the idea of being a mutant right now. I don't think Cousin Bilal's words would have had that much of an effect on her, especially when, again, she knows that her parents have accepted her in the past. So I don't see how this works. This must be just setting up what the starting point of this giant size event is going to be.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. They just need to force the end of this to match up with the beginning of that. But kind of a lame way to end this character arc here.
Who's this person eating dinner with the dad?
Mom and brother.
Is that the brother? Okay.
Yeah, I forget her brother's name, but that's her brother.
He has a weird kind of smile, like kind of enjoys the statement about the father being happy.
Well, I think he's just opening his mouth to take a bite of dinner.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah, I think it's just I think that's all that is. But yeah, it is kind of an odd look. Again, one of those things I think if this was in motion, it would look fine, but just it got freeze framed, kind of an awkward place. But generally, art-wise, while we're on the art, I think this is one of the better-looking books that have been coming out of the X office. I like the way Francesco Mortorino draws the characters, the level of detail, and like the Mojo splash page, really impressive at times. And the colors, I've gushed about the colors before. I think the colors still look really good. A lot of dark blacks with these glowing neons. you could take a page out of this comic, and I would know what title it came out of, which isn't true out of a whole lot of books coming out of Marvel these days. So, pro for the art. Writing wise, I'm going to say about NYX what I pretty much always say about it. Great concept, but the reality of it doesn't live up to the concept. Mojo being the big bad villain never really fit for this title. And I guess you can blame it on the cancellation, I guess. But his near win and sudden loss via the power of love and community, it just doesn't feel satisfying here. It kind of, we know Mojo was being set up since issue 2, but he's winning and now he lost was way too quick. And right, that's what happens when a title gets canceled.
Yeah.
So for me, Lansing and Kelly are going to move on to creator-owned stuff. I might check some of that out. I'm kind of curious if I enjoy their work more when they get to play with their own toys and not have to borrow the toys owned by a giant corporation like Disney.
Yeah, it's the continuity and everything else, whatever objectives they give you.
If they're able to run their whole world on their own, I'm kind of curious. But NYX number 10 for me just gets a 5 out of 10. How about you, Ruben?
Yeah, I'd like to go higher, but it's probably where I just don't care about this story. I'm curious to see, is this NYX Clubhouse still going to be part of the X universe going forward?
That's another good question. Yeah,
kind of got set up, and people are still hanging out there, and they defeat Mojo, so presumably it's still there, and you still have Prodigy running it. Yeah,
they don't really put the toys back in the toy box here so much, right? Ms. Marvel is moving on, but all the other characters should still pretty much be in this NYX status quo. Prodigy should still be running this, this club. All the other ones should still be hanging out there. Sophie Cuckoo, curious to see if she reconciled with her sisters.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think maybe some other, and that could be something that comes up in the background of one of the other books is, let's phone Prodigy and see what he's up to.
Yeah. And I wonder if Kitten is going to show up in the Laura Kinney book. Because they make a huge deal about their relationship here in this story, and then I'm going to laugh if she's gone again.
That's an interesting question because Kaiden, again, I don't know which is right. I'm just going to say Kaiden. Yeah. Kaiden has, I think, only been in the 2 NYX titles. At least she was originally in the first NYX. Now she's back in this NYX. I don't know if she's popped up in between. It made a really big deal about their reunion here, so it would be pretty funny if she just gets forgotten about. But we're not going to forget about coming back next week, Ruben, because next week we have kind of a lot more books to talk about, or certainly more than the one we had this week. We have X-Men number 16, where I'm going to say one more time, I guess we're going to find out if Quentin Quire is alive or dead, and we'll see maybe more of what 3K is up to with Twinsy and Piper. We also have Storm number 8, and maybe what was Storm up to? Oh, she had done that mission for Tony Stark. That was the last thing she was up to. I still want to find out when we're going to have her do that fight between Oblivion and Eternity.
Yeah. If I were going to get a wish list thing to happen, I would love to see some of the God's characters showing up, since Oblivion was part of that.
Yeah. I thought I read somewhere that the God's characters were going to pop up in another book somewhere. I forget where I read that. Shoot. But yeah, they're going to be back somewhere. But yeah, as a Hickman project, that turned out to be kind of a flop. I'm sure Marvel wanted that to be a bigger deal than it was. So let's hope his cosmic project goes better than his esoteric characters project. So those are the 2 big books next week, X-Men and Storm. And then 2 other books we probably going to talk about kind of quickly, if at all. And those are Psylocke number 7 and Laura Kinney Wolverine number 6. So, Ruben, if Kaiden shows up in either one of those 2 books, we will definitely talk about it. And other than that, what do you think our wonderful listeners can do while they're washing the butter out of their laundry this week?
Read more X-Men comics and tell us what you're interested in. I am curious. Great place to do that.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution.
Oh, goodness. That was too soon and too loud, and now it's gone. Let's try that again. Hey, Ruben, what were you about to say there? Goodbye, everybody. Have a great week.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution.
Oh my god! I
Sons
can't
of
wait to
bitches.
hear how badly
Sons
that
of bitches.
put together at
Sons
the
of
end.
bitches.